There's this huge problem going on right now, and is that people can't decide whether to get the Planet Eclipse Etek 5 or the Planet Eclipse Gtek. Now, these are both mid-range markers. I don't know why people say mid-end markers. There's no such thing as a middle. Before you spend your hard-earned caps on one of these two, hopefully I can help you out. So, you get pretty much identical packaging, but there are some things that I must emphasize are different. So, let's whack these out. You get these, probably know this already, but Eclipse packaging is fantastic. You get quality hard cases, quality cardboard boxes, although that's not that important. You usually store those, and these are the ones that see the most action. These will carry everything you need to keep your marker going. They hold it well, and they protect your marker, of course. You get, both of them come with a barrel stock. My Gtek barrel stock has gone AWOL. That's the best way of describing it. And let's start off with the barrels, because it's the thing that's closest to you, I guess. Now, they look like almost identical barrels, but the Gtek barrel is a bit better. It is a smaller bore back, meaning, I mean, they're both pretty big, but the smaller back will be more efficient. It's a 689. If you're shooting really small paint, it'll be, I don't want to say more accurate, but it'll be more consistent, and in the end, consistency and accuracy they influence each other. Let's put the barrels aside and take a look at the manual, which is what lies beneath the barrels. The Etek 5 is a more complete manual, and it has pictures in it, while the Gtek uses graphics like these most of the time. It's still full color, don't get me wrong, but it's smaller, and that's because it's missing the maintenance section, which is online on Planet Eclipse TV's maintenance channel, which is Planet Eclipse TV. The regular channel is Planet Eclipse. Their maintenance channel is Planet Eclipse TV. Keep that in mind. You get amazing spare parts bags. The Gtek spare parts bag is bigger because as a spool valve it requires more O-rings, but this one's just as good for what you'll need. The Etek comes with oil and the Gtek comes with grease. This is an advantage for the Gtek because the drivetrain runs on grease, and so does the regulator. While the Etek, although you can run the regulator with oil, it's designed that well. Most of the maintenance you'll do is on the drivetrain, and that runs on oil, and exclusively oil. Do not use grease on your Eclipse poppet valve systems. You get the exact same hex key sets, and of course, you get your respective marker. Let's take a look at these closer. Now, comparing the ergonomics of these two guns is easier said than done for sure, because at first glance, they look identical. When you line up the ASAs, you'll see that they meet the body at the exact same point, the trigger guards reach the exact same point, and the length from trigger frame to red grip is pretty much identical too. Now, the thing where the ergonomics compare is at the front red grip. The Gtek is a bit shorter. Now, it's not really a problem. It's very comfortable, it's easy to hold, it's easy to point. The fitting doesn't get in the way because of the angled collar. It does its job very, very well. It's comfortable, it's easy to point, but I wish there was a bit more beef there to hold on to. Kind of like the Etek. The Etek gives me tons of stuff to hold on to. I can hold it down here, I can hold it up there, and I can fit my entire hand in there without a problem. And once again, the fitting doesn't get in the way at all. That angled collar, I would even say does its job better than the AT pipe as far as holding, because the AT pipe goes through the frame and you can kind of get your hand mixed up there. Now, which one I prefer? I mean, I guess I could say the Etek because there's more stuff to hold on to, but I have to say the Gtek is totally fine. It it holds perfectly and it points perfectly, and that's all you need in a paintball marker. I don't think that the way one of these holds over the other should be a deal breaker
I just don't think it should be. They're both very comfortable and they both do their job very well.
Of course, weight is a big concern with these two. I don't really think there's much of a difference, but we're still gonna weigh them. So let's zero this. This is the Etek 5, and we're measuring it now, pounds. So it measures at 2.2 pounds, 2.25. And the Gtek is going to be a little less at 2.05. So 0.2 pounds less, pretty much, is what the Gtek weighs. Not something that's too noticeable, but it's something. So it's something that the Gtek has going for it compared to the Etek 5. Now let's talk about the drivetrains on these things. I have to say, before I say anything about this or anything about that, these are pretty much high-end drivetrains on these markers. The Gtek has something that's almost exactly like the IV core. It has the same breach sensing technology, and the Etek has the same rammer and bolt that are on the LV1, and the same LPR too. The only difference is the actual poppet assembly itself. The LV uses the lever to open the valve. This one just uses the force of the rammer. Just that. So it's a bit more abrupt. Now, the Gtek, let's start with this one, is a spool valve, and this gamma core is really neat. It does everything. If you know how historically spool valves have behaved on the field, they'd usually be the first guns to run out of air, and they'd usually be the first guns to fail in the winter. The gamma core solves these problems. It is a very, very, very robust system, and to add to that, is also extremely efficient. It's almost better at doing what poppet valves do than poppet valves themselves. This thing is amazing. Maintenance of the gamma core though, it'll take you between 5 and 10 minutes, depends on how experienced you are with it. But it's actually pretty easy. It's just a little intricate. If we take a look at the Etek, if it takes you more than 2 minutes to maintain this, you're probably doing something wrong. Because it's as simple as unscrew, pull the rammer out, drop oil on the O-rings, push it back in, and screw it back on. It takes me less than 1 minute to maintain the Etek 5, and it's amazing to be able to maintain your gun that fast. It's literally one less thing to worry about. Now, as far as paint handling goes, the Etek uses, although it does have a multi-stage acceleration rammer, the real star of the show is the soft bolt tip on the Cure 5 bolt. This will harness the energy of the paintball. Well, the energy of the bolt. It will just be really soft on paint. Your paintballs aren't going to receive the full force of the rammer. They'll just hang in there and slowly receive that. And the energy distributes so well, it is very gentle on paint. I can't emphasize that enough. It is extremely gentle on paint. Now, the Gtek uses that acceleration thing I mentioned earlier and it just does it a bit more. I mean, it's more noticeable, I guess. And starts slow to pick up the ball. Notice there's a hard tip on here. And once it picks up the ball, it doesn't really hit the paintball at all. What will break a ball is the bolt hitting it. Once the bolt accelerates with the ball, it's sort of like a catapult from then on. The energy is just being transferred from one object to the other. And that blast of air, of course, that follows is what shoots your ball. And I have to say that both of these guns are very gentle on paint. But I think you could get away with the Etek being a bit more gentle because of the soft bolt. I just have to say that. Now, if we take a look at the regulators, They both have the same SL4 regulator that's found on the Geo 3.5, 3.1, and the LV1 and the LV1.1. And it's a fantastic regulator. It's very consistent, it just works. Now, the Etek 5 uses an LPR. The advantage of having an LPR is that you can actually adjust bolt speed, something you cannot do on the Gtek. You play a bit with a duel and a bit on the LPR pressure. You can slow down your bolt or you can speed it up. And it's actually just, it's a really nice perk to have because it works very, very well. And if you've seen my videos on it, you know how well it works. And I have to say that that goes in favor of the Etek, definitely. You might have to do some more reg maintenance, but it's totally worth it to have that power to adjust bolt speed. Bro, this is all nice and dandy, but like, when are we gonna have to shoot something?
This is what the internet loves. Yeah, this gun is smoother than that one. No, that one is smoother than this one. So, let's try to feel for the kick, any vibration. Let's try to feel for that. And of course, we need to feed paint. Yeah, when you hold it, you almost don't feel the thing. You almost don't feel a thing when you shoulder it tight. Like you feel the energy, but I mean, there's almost nothing being felt. But when you're hanging in here, kind of the energy does push you back a bit, and that is to be expected. Yeah, but overall, very satisfying.
Now it's time to shoot the Etek. I've shot it in Asload, and this one's tuned, and it's broken in, which I suppose could be fair, because you can tune this, you can't tune that, Gtek that is. So let's see. By the way, I figured it would only be fair to compare them with the same bore size and the same barrel. Here's why. You might upgrade your barrel. So if we just compare this part with the same barrel, I guess this is what we're really evaluating. So, without further ado, let's go. One-handed. Why do I always forget to turn on my... Okay, so I can say this. You do feel the shock of the shot a little bit. It's not uncomfortable at all. It's a very smooth shot. You feel the rammer striking the poppet, but it's also a very smooth shot. You also feel, it feels smooth. Like I described in my review, it feels like it's catching and pushing the shot. It doesn't feel like the Etek 4, where it was like, you know? So this is very good, actually. Etek 5, like I said, it's a very good shooting poppet. And now let's, yeah, like this, you can see pretty much no kick. Like, the kick is only noticeable when you're one-handing. And when that's going on, it's pretty smooth anyway, so. But what are the actual shots like? Well, I have to say, for the Gtek, I was very impressed, because at 100 feet from a supported position, the shots were straight, they had very little lob to them, they were also very consistent, The paint I was using wasn't the best, but you can see, depending on the size or the bore of the paint or the shape it was, they were landing in small groups around my target. That was just impressive, and it wowed me. This gun is super consistent out of the box, and we'll see that in the chrono later. When we look at the Etek, we notice that the shot is just as consistent as that on the Gtek. The flight is very true and just as consistent. They are both fantastic shooters, that's all I have to say. They shoot perfectly. But you may have also noticed that the Etek shot lobs a bit more than the Gtek's. And this isn't necessarily a bad thing, because you can use this to shoot over bunkers and obstacles and surprise somebody by hitting them out of nowhere. Now let's take a look at them side by side. How do they fare on the chrono? The Etek 5's results were extremely impressive, to say the least. We calculated all the shots, and we got an average 288 feet per second. Coincidentally, the median was also 288, which is a very good sign. The modes were within 3 feet per second of the median, so this means that our regular shots will be plus or minus 3 feet per second on the chrono. But our peaks were 278 feet per second and 299, meaning that we can range up to plus or minus 10 feet per second. This is very hard to beat. The consistency on the Etek is one of the reasons why I've relied on it so much and why I think it's such a fantastic marker, especially for its price. But now that it has a sister marker in the Gtek, let's see how that one compares. The Gtek, although not quite as impressive as the Etek, was pretty impressive. The average and median were again the same velocity, which is a good thing because it just goes to show that our velocities aren't jumping around. And our modes were also very close to the medians. This means that we'll regularly get plus or minus 4 feet per second, and our shots were ranging up to plus or minus 13. Now, let's cut it some slack here too, because the Gtek is not broken in while the Etek is. But despite this, the Etek did have a better result. We also have to ask, what do they sound like when you're shooting them? From the shooter's perspective, none is noticeably quieter, really. But where the difference is noticeable is when you're being shot at by the marker. So let's see how that sounds. It was a bit noticeable that from afar the Etek 5 was louder than the Gtek. That's probably due to the lower pitch sound that the marker makes when being fired. What about shooting semi-auto? The Etek felt really good with its responsive shot, but the Gtek also felt really good with its bouncy trigger. So it's a tough one, and I can't decide because they're both really good. So I won't decide. Something that might worry you is, what's it like playing in the hottest condition?
Welcome to the Caribbean, life.
I mean, we don't have to stick this in an oven because we are in the Caribbean.
Welcome to the Caribbean, life.
So let's see how this beast shoot in the heat. All right, Gtek first. Fairly well, not a problem. Now, how does the Etek 5 do in the infernal conditions of the Caribbean?
Welcome to the Caribbean, life.
Let's find out. Shoots very good, no problems at all. But what if all of a sudden it starts to rain? And you're gonna soak. How's it gonna fare there? Let's take a look. It shoots fine, not a problem at all. But what if it starts raining while we're using the Etek? People say, hey man, that exposed bolt, oh man, it terrifies me, but let's get the paint in. I would even say that it shot better than the Gtek there. It shot straighter, and it looks like it maintained velocity a bit more. Don't have a chrono. It would have been fantastic to have a chrono, but I guess you're gonna have to take my word for it. The shots just felt nicer. My guess as to why that is because the poppet valve is on a completely different level than the breech. Unlike the Gtek that has a single tube, so less water could just interfere with the whole firing process.
So at the freezer, we are sitting just a little under 10 degrees, negative 10 degrees Celsius, whatever that is in Fahrenheit, 10 degrees Celsius, Fahrenheit. So let's put these beasts in there, and we'll come back in a couple of hours. And of course, it's best to turn these off. You can see they are being frozen with the batteries. And we'll be back in about 2 hours, 2 hours and a half.
Okay, so we just pulled out both of these markers from the freezer, and it's pretty hot here, and you can see the condensation already starting to form. So let's do this as fast as possible. Gtek first. Gtek gases up fine. Turns on fine. OLED reads okay. All right, 5 rounds. Let's see how it does. Dropped one. And it's shooting perfectly, flawless. So Gtek flawless after 2 hours in negative 10 degrees Celsius, which is, I believe, 10 Fahrenheit. Let's see how the Etek does under the same conditions. It should do fine. No leaks. Thought I heard something, but there was nothing. Five rounds. Wait. turns on okay. Oh yeah, they both did excellent. These things, amazing. So we fired them and how hot is it? Is it 40 degrees Celsius right now? A little under 40 degrees Celsius here. And they shot fine. We shot them while very wet and they shot fine. And we shot them frozen. You could almost invade Russia with these, if you know what I'm saying. If I had to pick between the two, like just both of them new, it'd be a very difficult decision to make. But do you want to pop it or do you want to spool?